Well, first of all, Greg, one of the biggest measures announced in the budget speech was the fact that the Isle of Man is withdrawing the attribution regime for individuals. What kind of impact will this have, and was this something expected from the business community?
I think it's been on the cards for some time now, John. The significance of removing ARI is that hopefully it's enabled us to say now to the EU, the European Union, we don't have a harmful corporate tax regime. As you know, the corporate rate of income tax on the Isle of Man is 0%. We've had that since 2006. It's been very good for business. But one of the reasons that we've been able to keep 0% going is that ARI has acted as a deterrent to local residents using companies to shelter their own personal income. And that combination of this anti-avoidance measure for local residents and a 0% rate for companies is something the EU hasn't liked. We've been aware of that for some time, and we know that the EU was going to make a formal statement to this effect later this week, both in respect of Isle of Man and in respect of Jersey. So hopefully by abolishing ARI today, by making an announcement today that ARI is going to be abolished, we'll take the wind out of their sails. We're effectively saying to the EU, we now no longer have anything that you could regard as harmful within our tax system, and so there seems to be no reason we shouldn't carry on with a 0% rate of corporate income tax. So that's the main significance of removing ARI. It does leave a question that if there's nothing to stop local residents from using companies to shelter any spare cash of their own, they won't be paying personal income tax on the investment income that's generated within those companies. How much tax is going to be lost by the Isle of Man as a result of that measure? Obviously, we don't know yet. It remains to be seen. There are some things that the tax authorities could do to try and counter that, but it's very difficult to say to people, you can't put your investments into a company. So we'll just have to see what sort of impact the loss of ARI has on local tax revenues here. But the good news is for the business community is that the Treasury Minister is now able to say we don't see any reason to change our corporate tax regime. It's going to stay at 0%, and so that's really good news for business.
Now, in terms of personal income tax, the rates are staying the same, the 10% for the lower rate and 20% for the upper rate. This is really not unexpected, is it?
I think, as you say, we weren't expecting too many surprises where personal income tax rates are concerned. We didn't envisage personal allowances being increased, and that in a sense is a form of higher taxation by not increasing allowances. There are some reliefs that have been abolished. Self-employed people won't be able to treat the national insurance contributions they pay as a tax deduction, so that's obviously going to cost self-employed people going forward. And for those people who've got children at university, typically they would fund them through what are known as educational deeds of covenant. The ones that are in existence are going to be okay, but anyone taking out a new educational deed of covenant to fund their child through university won't in future be able to get tax relief on that. So there might be some grumblings of discontent about that. But otherwise, the personal tax rates and allowances will pretty much stay the same. As you say, no surprises there.
Of course, the focus has been on government spend, and especially as a result of the VAT issue.
Yep.
Government have been quick to say they're sort of slightly ahead of where they projected they were going to be. What's your reaction to that? Are government doing enough?
Well, as you say, I mean, it was last year, wasn't it, that Alan Bell put in place this 5-year plan to try and rein in government spending, control the amount of that deficit between the income we generate and the amount we spend. The £100 million hole put in government revenues by the loss of the changes to the VAT sharing agreement. Obviously, there was a lot of ground we needed to make up as a result of that, and so Mr. Bell put some fairly challenging targets in place for all government departments to try and reduce their expenditure, reduce headcount, etc., over the next 5 years. 1 year down the line, and it does look as if those targets are by and large being met. But you've got to say that the increase in the VAT rate to 20% has helped us out in that respect, and largely because of that increase, which will generate about 25 million in extra revenues, we've got a very small surplus this year. If we didn't have that increase in VAT, and of course we can't carry on increasing VAT just to mop up any deficit. If it hadn't been for that, then you've got to say that maybe the controls on government spending wouldn't have been sufficient. And I suppose the other point to bear in mind is that later this year, in September, there'll be an election in the Isle of Man. So in an election year, you probably wouldn't expect too many radical changes to the way in which public finances are shaped. But I think it's likely in the next year or two or three that we're going to have to look long and hard at public finances and how they're modelled, because these sorts of savings are probably not going to be enough in future years. And I personally think that we need to be looking and thinking out of the box in terms of things like, you know, privatisation programmes, alternative ways of raising revenue, things that we looked at a few years ago when we first looked at the 0-10 regime, actually. Now that's not on the cards at the moment, I think largely because it is an election year and you don't get surprises in election years, but I think in years to come the government's going to have to look very seriously at those options.